8 hours of training in the RBT methodologies, and I know that that statement of reasons says that he doesn't follow it. I respectfully submit to you, the facts point out that Dan Monahan follows that to a T. All of that time and training that went into him to then just cut him loose, I submit to you, really not a good reason. And all I can come up with in the file, and we haven't had a lot of dialogue with the administration, but all we can really come up with is that, frankly, there was a mistake made. And that's it. There's a lot of great things that this district is doing. There are 4 high schools that you're in charge of. There are many, many teachers and many, many decisions. But nobody's infallible. We all make a mistake here or there. In this particular instance, there was a mistake. And all we're asking that you do tonight is to really correct that mistake. Whether you want to do it, or I don't know if procedurally she can do it, if Superintendent Capella wants to just change her recommendation, I would love to hear that. But that's all we're asking, really, is that a mistake be corrected. No harm, no foul. Let's get this guy back at Lenape. What are you going to read also in the letters? With page tab 12, you're going to read a letter from a mother who we believe, if we understand the statement of reasons, and we haven't had any details on it, but there's a particular incident involving a particular student who Mr. Monahan was supposedly disciplining. And respectfully, the facts are wrong. That statement of reason, they're actually wrong, and they don't quite get it. And the mother lays it out for you. And what does she say to you? She says, "You're getting rid of Monahan because of me, not on my watch. I am writing a letter to you to tell you that you are making a mistake. Stop, please." That's what she tells you. She tells you that my son, was acting like a boy. Monahan treated him like a young man. He's now graduated. He's going on to college, and a lot of that is due to Monahan. So let's figure out that situation. Also, that situation in those letters tell you, Mr. Monahan doesn't sit here and tell you that he handled it perfectly. He had a discussion with his supervisor about that. They sat down and he thought about it, and he said, "You know what, Larry? Yeah, I wouldn't do that again. I could learn from that." That's what this is all about, learning. Other parents are going to say to you, bend over backwards to keep this guy. Don't push him out. And this is a guy who's standing here saying, "I want to be back on the team." He's saying Tony Catani, Principal Catani, is his quarterback. He wants to be on his team. Let him be it. He can do a great job for you. Please read the letters from the students. Page 35, no flaw. This is one of the best emails I've read in a long time. This gentleman says, "I never had Dan Monahan in my class. Never was in his class. Dan Monahan's the best teacher he ever had." Whatever you want to say about a teenager gets riled up and everything else, and they go along with the cause, and then the next day they're playing Sega Genesis or whatever the thing is now. This is not, that's not what this student is doing, okay? That's not just trifle stuff that he's putting out there. He is saying, "I was sitting around in the lunchroom." Dan Monahan was the lunchroom monitor at that point in time. His love of literature is so infectious that this kid caught the bug and he loves literature more now. Dan Monahan, the best teacher he ever had, never had his class. Read the letter at page 40 from Dana Yocovelli. It says, when a student died in 2010, she didn't have Monahan's class. The next day, she went to his class just to hear his words. That's a gift. We don't throw that away. Think about if your son or your daughter or your grandson or your granddaughter had a situation where one of their friends died. Wouldn't you want them to have a figure in the class so that they can walk up to and they could hear some healing words? We don't throw that away. Read the letter at page 35 from Sabrina Herbert, who's now a student studying general education. She graduated from Lenape a year or two ago. She's studying to be a teacher, in part because of Monahan. She's terrified of the precedent that this sets to just get rid of a teacher like this. That if you can get rid of Dan Monahan, who she is holding up on the pedestal, what does that say for her and her career? Should she even continue studying to be a teacher? The letter from Paul Bocci at page 42, he writes this great letter, but he really hits the nail on the head. The standard here is the best interest of the student. That's what we should be talking about. James Parker, page 50, an officer in the Future Educators of America Club, who said that for the Shadow a Teacher for the Day project, half the students wanted to be Shadow Monahan. Other deeply personal stories of self-esteem, depression, teenage suicide, major physical injuries, major illnesses that this guy, time and again, was giving extra time, helping them achieve. And again, these are students, he doesn't just help them achieve by pushing them through and being the cool guy and giving the easy A's. He's by challenging them, by inspiring them. Think about the educators that probably had the most profound impacts on you. I'm thinking they may have been the teachers who probably challenged you the most. I know that's the way for me. The first thing I did when I started getting these letters and emails from these students was I wrote an email to a high school teacher of mine because I had a single transformative high school teacher like that. I had many great teachers. I'm a product of the East Brunswick High School system. I had many great teachers, but there was one in particular that stood out to me. And that's what all of these students are saying, that there's this one guy that's really sticking out for them. Read the email from Christian Ball on page 36, who wrote me from Cambodia to talk about how great Monahan is. This kid, he's getting all sorts of awards. He's going to change the world from DoSomething.org and everything else. And he attributes a lot of it to Monahan. Again, not all of it, but a large part of it. Margaret Machinsky, on page 61. She wrote a college admission essay. She gets back a response from the university saying, "You had one of the best essays I have read this entire year," end quote. What better publicity for this school system than to have college admission officers associating the term Lenape with great writing? Please read all of them. I promise you, when you read all of those letters and emails, you will never be more proud of this school district than when you finish reading that packet. And the students who go through his creative writing, the best proof of all of his teaching capabilities, they're great writers. Your students in the school system are great writers, at least the ones I've seen. But the ones I've seen, they've all gone through his class. The syntax, the punctuation, the argument flow, the structure, they're really good. And also, if you want to get an idea of what his class is like, watch the DVD that we provided at tab 10 of the Save the Words project. Mr. Monahan referred to it. I know you've seen it before. I believe it was presented to you a few months ago as one of the great things that this district was doing. But I bet at that point in time you did not think to yourself, boy, in a couple of months I'll be sitting in judgment of his teaching career. I bet at that point in time you were sitting in your chair and you were thinking, this is wonderful. All of these teachers got together and did this kind of project. We want more of them, not less. And I have to tell you, and can I ask Mr. Shinsky how much time I have left?
You have about 8 minutes.
Okay. All right, I'm going to have to go through this quick. I'm going to ask you to refer to the tab 4, the year-end evaluations. Sing this guy's praises up and down, hitting every major mission statement point, the unlimited educational opportunities, the technology, the partnerships with the family communities. The year-end evaluations do that. Year 1 and year 2, those are the only 2 year-end evaluations that we have. Many of the year 2 evaluations, when you look at that, it's the second page of tab 4, absolutely diametrically opposed to the statement of reasons in the letter that we received on June 6th as to why Mr. Monahan's contract was not renewed. Why are we going through all of these evaluations? What are we paying people to evaluate if suddenly it switches? And we can't get any reason why it actually switched. Nobody told us. And maybe there's somebody's going to get up here tonight and start telling you why they said this thing or why they said that thing, but ask yourself, why did they not say that beforehand? Why did they not give Mr. Monahan a chance to respond? And I'll ask you, give me or give Mr. Monahan an opportunity to respond if somebody else is going to get up there and say something that's different from that June 6th letter. The end of year 2, Mr. Monahan received the Crystal Apple Award. Jointly voted upon by the faculty and the administration, the only unanimous selection for that award that year. And read the periodic evaluations. Okay? I submit to you, they hit every single major curriculum point. the hallmarks of everything about the curriculum that you set up every year, they're hit in those evaluations, 12 of them. They sing his praises. They are stellar. So we get the statement of reasons. Well, one of the things we wanted to know is to say, if this guy is so great, where's the boogeyman? Why are we getting rid of the guy? We know it's not the budget. The statement was made in the press that it was not the budget. I have that article for you there. So he had to have done something bad. So we submitted an open records request. We asked for, give us everything, every grievance, every complaint, anything that anyone has ever said about this guy. The response that we got back, none. There's nothing terrible in this guy's file. So what are the statement of reasons? 5 minutes, okay. I'm going to only get through a couple. I'm going to ask that, if you will, if you need additional information, tab 1 is an exhaustive memorandum from Mr. Monahan, where he sat there to try to respond to these general statements. He didn't know exactly what it was, for what's the basis of these statement of reasons. So he turned himself inside and out to try to address every single statement of reason. So please read tab 1. Poor attendance. Mr. Monahan has never exceeded his contractual days off. In year 2, he had 13 days off. He got the Crystal Apple Award. He got a new contract. He got a stellar evaluation. In year 3, this year, he had 14.5 days off. I submit to you, 1.5 days, that's not the difference between Crystal Standard and Substandard. It's just not. And why did he have the 14.5 days off? And this is what somebody reading the file wouldn't know. 3 of those days, he was in the hospital with his daughter, who's 1 year old, with a 107-degree fever. 107. That is get on your knees and pray kind of territory. And if it were anyone in this room had a son or daughter or grandson or granddaughter who had a child, anybody like that, whether the son was 1 year old or 45 years old, the first thing that you do is drop everything and you get to the ER. And that's what he was. I asked him, I said, Dan, well, were you sleeping at the ER? The response was, well, no, John, I wasn't sleeping. But they were there for 3 days. So they missed some school. Okay? Well, what is the message that you're sending to the teachers, that we get rid of a teacher like that at this point in time? Read strategy 2 in the long-range plan. It's in the last head. Compassion, not just for the students, but compassion for the faculty, the staff, is of paramount concern according to that 2008 long-range plan. If the long-range plan means anything, you have to stand up here tonight, please, and say, poor attendance. That just doesn't fly here. And whoever read the file just made a mistake. They didn't realize what's happening behind those numbers. Reason number 2, untimely submission of paperwork. He happened to have been off at the point in time that we believe a student IEP evaluation was due. He was off at that point in time in the ER with his daughter, Maeve Elizabeth. 33% of those statement of reasons, all out the door with that. Let me address now the failure of the board pedagogy, and this is what I referred to earlier. As you know, and it's in your agenda, page 9, number 5 on the bottom, you are going to be talking about understanding by design tonight. You're going to be getting, I think, giving $6,000 for specialists on that. The problem, if you read the last evaluation that Mr. Monahan had, Principal Westman evaluated him and said, when you put up the question, what is it that defines your voice as a question, that essential question doesn't count as a mastery objective. That was a mistake. Okay? And Principal Westman is a busy guy. He's not in charge of the English department. But read the 2 prior evaluations from Mr. Stripmaner and from Principal Catani, signed by Principal Catani, where they are talking about when Monahan was using an essential question in his evaluations, and they loved it because this guy was out there doing understanding by design now. Why was he doing it now? Because he was told by his English department that is where we are going finally for next year, and we as an English department are going to be leaders in this district. And we are going to implement it now. We're going to try to transition now so we're not caught off guard next year. So that's why he was doing it. That email from Mr. Strickmaner is in there. It's exactly in there. Do the mastery objective as an essential question. This is not a guy who is bucking the system. And I don't know exactly what goes through all of your minds, but as I looked at the statement of reasons, I thought the board pedagogy and someone refusing to do it would be the thing you'd care most about. And this guy actually follows those rules. When he was doing an essential question at that point in time, he was following the rules, he was following his leadership.